Welcome back. Attorney General Bill Barr told me that the Russian collusion narrative was the closest the U.S. has ever come to a coup since the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Yet, according to a new Rasmussen poll, most voters do not know there's evidence that Barack Obama and Joe Biden were even involved in it. AG Barr recently spoke to me about the status of John Durham's investigation on the FBI's probe into the Trump campaign.
He's pressing ahead as hard as he can, and I expect that, we will have some developments, hopefully before the end of the summer. But as I've said, his investigation will continue. It's not going to stop because of the election. What happens after the election may depend on who wins the election.
Congressman Jim Jordan is the ranking Republican on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Where are we on the John Durham investigation, sir? What do you know?
Well, we know what Bill Barr has told us. Now, the Attorney General will be in front of the Judiciary Committee in 2 weeks. I'm sure he'll get asked about this and a number of other issues. But the Attorney General has said that he expects something this summer. We're in the summer, so let's hope it happens. Let's hope it happens before the election. I will tell you this, Maria, the number one question I get, whether I'm in the 4th District of Ohio or traveling around our state or traveling around the country, the number one question I get from people is they'll walk up to me and says, when is somebody going to jail? And the reason they say that is because they're sick of the double standard. This idea that there's one set of rules for the politically connected in D.C. and a different set for us regular folks. So let's hope we have the investigation done before the election. Let's hope that someone is going to be held accountable for the major wrongdoing that took place when they targeted the president's campaign and spied on the president's campaign.
Well, it's pretty extraordinary. And, we know that there was already criminality done, whether it's leaking confidential information or changing a document of evidence, which is one of the FBI agents already did that. They changed a document.
Yep.
Or maybe it was an entrapment, lying to investigators. So how come we haven't seen any charges yet? I mean, there are, 14 referrals of criminal charges already from you and your colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? But here's how bad it was. Michael Flynn, 38 different people, 49 different times unmasked Michael Flynn's name between Election Day 2016 and Inauguration Day in January 2017. So in that short 2-month time period, 49 separate times they were unmasking his name, even though they already knew, all these people already knew that there was no basis for the investigation to begin with. And how do we know that they knew there was no basis, there was no proper predicate? Because when they testified, they told us that. Rick Grinnell released the testimony of Comey and Clapper and Brennan and Rice and Samantha Powers, released all that testimony, and they all said the same thing. We never saw any evidence of any type of coordination, collusion, conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia, but they investigated it anyway, even up until the time when Bob Mueller was named special counsel. Jim Comey, when we deposed him in the House last Congress, when we deposed him, he said, after 10 months, we didn't have anything. But Comey does what? Leaks his memos so we get 2 years of Bob Mueller. Leaks his memos for the express purpose of getting a special counsel name. And then we had the 19 lawyers, 40 agents, 500 subpoenas, 2,800 or 500 witnesses, 2,800 subpoenas, and $30 million to tell us what we already knew, what they already knew, that there was nothing there. So let's hope that ultimately someone is held accountable.
Do you think there will be indictments?
I hope so. I mean, I've said this all along. I think Jim Comey is the biggest culprit here. It was the Comey cabal, this small handful of people at the top of the FBI. Okay. And remember, Bill Barr, the first time he testified, said there was a failure of leadership at the upper echelon of the FBI. Comey, McCabe, Baker, Strzok, Page, they all were left or had to be fired as the key people who ran the Clinton investigation, the Trump-Russia investigation. Comey's the ringleader here. I hope they give him a second look, and I hope he is ultimately held accountable.
Let me switch gears, ask you about your committee, the Judiciary Committee's closed-door testimony of Jeffrey Berman. I have in front of me your takeaways from the committee's transcribed interview with Berman. Nadler says the Barr dealings with Berman came awfully close to bribery. Your reaction, and tell us what you can about that closed-door hearing.
No, first of all, Mr. Nadler's statement is ridiculous. When we deposed Mr. Berman, he said very clearly, we asked him about his meeting with Bill Barr on June 19th in New York. We said, did you talk about any cases? No. Did you talk about any suspects? No. Did you talk about any witnesses to any cases? No. Did you talk about the president? No. There was nothing there. The Attorney General and the President of the United States are entitled to have the people they want as U.S. attorneys around the country. That's all this was. The Democrats, because they don't like the fact that Bill Barr is trying to get to the bottom of what took place in the previous Justice Department, the Obama, Biden, Comey Justice Department, because they don't like the fact that he's trying to clean up the politics that existed in the previous administration. They continue to go after him. So much so that they filed articles of impeachment against the Attorney General just a week and a half ago. That's how ridiculous the Democrats are.
Congressman, I got to ask you about tech tyranny and the upcoming hearings that you're going to have in judiciary. We're going to hear from people like Apple CEO, Google CEO, Facebook, Twitter, in a hearing on July 25th or 28th. Tell me about your letter to Jack Dorsey about the president's tweets and what you're expecting out of technology, big tech. Are they going to try to sway the election in November?
Well, Maria, I always start with this simple question. Why does it always seem that it's just conservatives who get censored or shadow banned by these big tech companies? Why was it 2 years ago that there are 435 members of the House, there are 100 members of the Senate, 535, but only 4 were shadow banned? Gates, Meadows, Nunes, Jordan. Interesting 4. I always say, you know, when we sent a letter to Jack Dorsey, we said, when we brought this to his attention, he indicated that, oh, it was just a glitch in our algorithm. To which I responded, glitch in your algorithm? What'd you put in the algorithm? The names Gates, Meadows, Nunes, Jordan? I mean, it's always conservative. Why is it only the president? Why is it only the president who gets censored? You never see him going after Joe Biden with it. Why was it the Federalist that Google tried to demonetize? You never see a liberal news outlet trying to be demonetized. So that to me is the fundamental question, and that has got to change, because in America today, if only one side is allowed to talk, that's not the First Amendment. You got to have a real debate, and this cancel culture mob and the impact they have on these big tech companies is a scary road we're traveling down, and it needs to stop. And that's what we're going to focus on as Republicans in these hearings.
Congressman, it's great to have you this morning. We'll be watching certainly closely. It's so wonderful to get your take on all of this, Congressman Jim Jordan.